Hello, I'm Richard Seltzer. I'd like to share with you my favorite book, The Lizard of Oz, which I self-published 46 years ago. I'm going to read to you the new, improved, and expanded edition, which I just finished writing and which is not in print. I'll make a separate video for each chapter. The original edition had illustrations by Christin Couture. I'll show you a couple of those pictures at the end of this video. Chapter 9. Prince Frog. On they went through the winding streets until the road ended in the middle of a dark woods. It was night, and the woods were dense and wild and scary. The class could hear crickets and locusts and frogs, and nobody knew where they were. "I can't understand it," Miss Osborne admitted. "I was sure I knew where we were, but here we are lost again. We'll just have to turn around and try again, children. Your parents must be frantic by now, but we can't be far from home." Suddenly they heard a voice that seemed to come from a bush. "Hello, miss. Can I help you?" Miss Osborne scrunched down in her seat as far as she could go. Miss Shelby screamed. Mr. Newman, who was riding on the roof of the car, reassured them. "Don't worry, I'll protect you." Gaynell whispered from the bottom of the pile of kids. "What is it, Kathy? I can't see a thing down here." "It's a tall, handsome prince," answered Kathy. "How can you tell?" asked Gaynell. "He has a crown on, so I can tell he's a prince. And even with nothing at all on, I can tell he's very handsome." The kids started giggling. Indeed, a tall, handsome, naked prince was standing near Miss Osborne's window. Miss Osborne stared at him without saying anything. So the prince said, "My name's Prince Frog." Miss Osborne said, "Miss Osborne, pleased to meet you." She got out of the car and shook his hand politely. "Enchanted," replied the prince. Then Timmy asked, "Gee, Miss Osborne, aren't you going to ask him how to get home from here?" Miss Shelby whispered loudly, "Let's get out of here, Miss Osborne." Then she said louder, "Miss Osborne." Then she shouted, "Miss Osborne!" Then she called up to the roof, "Mr. Newman, what's going on?" Mr. Newman answered, "Maybe he's a magician, and maybe he's put her under a spell." Miss Osborne and the prince were standing very close to one another, looking quietly into one another's eyes. Donnie said, "Gosh," and looked the other way. Eugene laughed and said, "Go ahead and kiss him." They probably didn't hear anyone, but in a minute, without either of them seeming to move, they were kissing. Suddenly the prince turned into a frog. Miss Osborne would have screamed, but she had a frog on her throat. "You don't love me," said the frog. He was hopping mad, so he hopped down to the ground. Donnie said, "Gosh, that was neat. Can you do that again, mister?" "Mr. Sherman, Mr. Sherman," shouted Mrs. O'Rourke. "Calm down, Mrs. O'Rourke," said Mr. Sherman. "Calm down." "But Mr. Sherman," Mrs. O'Rourke persisted, "the prince just turned into a frog, and he's the handsomest frog I've ever seen." Meanwhile, the frog told Miss Osborne, "All these years I've been looking for somebody who'd love me, and I did everything I could to make myself so somebody would love me. I even changed myself into a prince, which not many frogs can do. And I thought finally it had worked, and you had fallen in love with me, and I could relax and go back to being a frog and live happily ever after. But you didn't really love me." He sobbed big frog tears. Miss Osborne felt sorry for the frog and felt bad about making him sad. "Didn't you like being a prince?" she asked, and smiled, hoping he'd turn himself into a prince again. "Well, I feel amphibian about it. I don't know what I want to be. It's so good to be loved. At least I'm sure it must be, but then it's so comfortable being a frog. I think I'll go down to the river and croak." "No, don't do that." "Everybody croaks sooner or later. Frogs just do it more often." Miss Osborne pleaded, "Please don't leave us. We were trying to get home, and the road suddenly ended, and we'd very much appreciate it if you could show us a way out of here." "You passed away a few miles back," he said. "We didn't see it." "Well, you must have passed away. Nobody gets to the underworld without passing away." "The underworld?" she asked. "Not Mac the Knife again. Mac the who?" "Well, whoever you want, sooner or later you'll find him in the underworld. If he isn't there now, just wait a while." "Is this the underworld?" "We're very close," he said. We just have to go down to the river. Maybe you can give me a lift." Well, I guess we have no choice but to go there. Which way is it? Anyway, all paths lead there sooner or later. So the frog hopped back into the fishbowl, and Miss Osborne drove him to the river because she felt sorry for him and because she didn't know where else to go. Mrs. O'Rourke said, "Didn't I tell you, Mr. Sherman? Isn't he the handsomest frog you've ever seen?" I want to show you a couple of pictures from that chapter from the original edition. Here's a picture of Prince Frog when he's a prince. And here's a picture of Prince Frog when he's a frog. I hope you enjoyed this chapter. Please watch the rest of the story. I'm making a separate video for each of 27 chapters. Feedback welcome. My name is Richard Seltzer, as in Alka-Seltzer. My email is seltzer@seltzerbooks.com. All Things That Matter Press recently published 3 other novels of mine: Parallel Lives, Beyond the Fourth Door, and Nevermind. You can find those all at Amazon as paperbacks and as ebooks. They can be read in any order. They're independent stories with overlapping theme and styles. Each presents a different view of reality, a different way of trying to make sense of the mysteries of life.